gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages.
Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the My 2 Cents podcast, presented by and hosted by G2. I am G2. This is episode 237 of the podcast, and I would like to first start off by welcoming our first-time listeners and welcoming back our returning listeners. And I'd like to ask every single one of you, how are you guys doing? I hope everybody's day has been well. I hope everybody's week was great to good to awesome. If it wasn't any of those three and it sucked, I am sorry to hear that, and I hope that this next week will be better than last, and I hope that nobody aggravates you to the point that you just want to just smash one in the face, because that won't solve anything. In the moment, it will give you relief, but you gotta think of lawsuits, you gotta think of people trying to give you some type of charge, and again, this is the era that we're in, or worse, someone might actually take it up another notch because you punched them in the face and they might actually do something way worse than a punch. So you know what I mean? So please, do not punch anyone if they aggravate you this week, but also just try to let it, roll off your back like a duck with water. They let it roll off their back and they always stay dry. So if you could, please try to not allow anything to mess with you, not allow anything to bother you this week. And I want everyone to have a great to good to awesome week to the best of your abilities. And always, I have to say this because I really do mean this, please do not stress out over things you cannot control. Only, I'll say not worry, but only focus on things you can control. Things that's out of your control, try not to worry about it so much because it's in the name. You can't control it. There's nothing that you can do. So if you try to control something that you can't control, the only thing you do to just fritzing out your brain. And again, I've said this countless of times, stress is one of the most, I'm not going to say underrated, but one of those things that people don't realize that actually is a greater cause to their demise. Whether you're in a physical pain or you're dealing with something mentally, stress plays a part in it. And if you have too much stress, you will basically go down under. And I don't want people to go down under that when it's not your time over stressing out over things. All right. So once again, please don't stress out over things that you can't control. Only take care of things that's in your wheelhouse, if you will, this upcoming week. And please try to have the best week that you can this upcoming week. And also be kind and courteous to everyone that you do come across, because you have no idea with your kindness, what that can do to someone and how that could change their outcome for that day, because they could be thinking about doing something to themselves, but you just showing them just a hint of kindness can actually change their mood, and just try to be the light that you can. All right. So with me getting off my soapbox there, now it's time for me to move on to my National Food Days of the Week. Today being July 20th, it is Lollipop Day, as well as Fortune Cookie Day, as well as Ice Cream Sundae Day. July the 22nd will be Punooch Day, which is some type of fudge. July 23rd will be Peanut Butter and Chocolate Day, as well as Hot Dog Day, as well as Vanilla Ice Cream Day. July 24th will be Tequila Day, so please drink responsibly. July 25th will be Hot Fudge Sundae Day. And then to round us out, July 26th will be Coffee Milkshake Day. Now, with the National Food Days out the way, it's time for me to move on to my condolences. First off, I want to start off with musician Connie Francis. It has been announced that she passed away this week. She died at the age of 87. She was a singer who had hits of Stupid Cupid and Who's Sorry Now, and the resurgence of Pretty Little Baby that was floating around and being a trend on TikTok. Only reason how I know that is because my sister and all the other young kids are on TikTok. I don't really do that app, but that was a thing that was floating around a lot, and that does sound like an old-timey type song, so not my surprise to see that it came from 1962, because it does sound old-timey. Connie Francis, she passed away. She was recently being treated for pelvic pain caused by a fracture. During her stay in the hospital, she was diagnosed with pneumonia and died Wednesday night, the president of her record label, Ron Roberts, told BBC News. So, ladies and gentlemen, please pay your respect and please sing your condolences to the family, co-workers, people that knew Connie Francis. And once again, rest in peace to Connie Francis. On to the next condolences. The next condolence is Alan Bergman. He was an Oscar-winning lyricist. He died at the age of 99. The Guardian would write an article about the man. They would say Alan Bergman, the Oscar-winning lyricist who teamed up with his wife, Marilyn, for endearing and loving partnership that produced such old-fashioned hits as How Do You, Keep the Music Playing, It Might Be You, and the classic The Way We Were, have died aged 99. He died late on Thursday at his home in Los Angeles. Family spokesperson Ken Sunshine said in a statement on Friday. The statement said Bergman had in recent months suffered from respiratory issues, but continued to write songs till the very end. So at the age of 99, you're going to have some issues. I wish he just would have went out of natural causes instead of having some respiratory issues, which cause you pain. But at the age of 99, I mean, only 2 weeks you're going to go out either by natural illness or by some type of medical issue. And again, I wish he would have went out on natural causes, but life is life. But he was 99, bro. Passed away at the age of 99. I mean, lived a long life, way longer than a lot of people get to live. So I do want to give condolences to his wife, to the other writers and other people in the music industry that did work with the man. And again, just give love and condolences to the family, friends, and co-workers of Alan Bergman. So once again, rest in peace to that man. And the final condolence I do have here is a football player by the name of Bryan. Braman, he died this week. This is coming from ABC6. They would say Bryan died Thursday after seeking treatment this year for a rare aggressive form of cancer, according to his agent. He was 38. Bryan had undergone multiple surgeries during treatment in Seattle, according to a GoFundMe page set up to help him with expenses. Bryan had been diagnosed with cancer in February, more specifically a rare form of brain cancer. His agent confirmed his death Thursday, noting that Bryan had 2 daughters, ages 11 and 8. Bryan, people saw this enormous human being, but his heart was big as his body. His spirit was so motivating. He was so real and genuine with everything that made him special. It's hard. I feel like I lost my firstborn. This kid, he gave me his bed every time I came to Philadelphia. He would threaten me if I didn't stay with him. That's something I'll always cherish. My heart hurts today. And that came from his agent. So again, rest in peace to Bryan Braman. And God, I give condolences to his children. Just imagine your daughters seeing you in your last state. And I'm not certain if he was sickly or not, but when you're dealing with someone that has cancer and brain cancer, I would think your probably last moments are probably not in your best physical conditions. And I'm hoping that his daughters didn't see that. But if they did, I just give them my love. I give them my condolences. I give them my well wishes, because, man, for them not to have their father and they'll just have memories of their dad being around for that period of time, man, that's something that's going to hit them. And I hope that they have the right people around them to make sure that they don't go into a sad state. I hope that they have the people around them to at least try to wipe their tears from their eyes, because they're going to cry because their dad's no longer here. And I hope that they have the right people around them just to make sure that they will never forget their father. That's what I'm hoping for with those 2 girls. So again, rest in peace to Bryan Braman, and rest in peace to, again, all the other people that we did lose this week. And that's the condolences that I do have to mention today. So with the condolences out the way, let's get into some of the news topics that happened this week. And I want to talk about one that just happened Friday. We're talking about Venezuelans actually being swapped for Americans. And this is coming from Reuters. They say that El Salvador is sending home Venezuelans detained in the country in a prisoner exchange for Americans held in Venezuela. Officials from all three countries said on Friday. In a post on X, Twitter, El Salvador's president said those freed in Venezuela were en route to El Salvador, from where they would continue their journey home, while U.S. Secretary of State Mark Rubio confirmed the release of 10 Americans who were detained in Venezuela. He thanked the president of El Salvador for his help in securing the agreement. The Venezuelan government confirmed that 252 Venezuelans held in El Salvador have been freed. Reuters reported early on Friday that the prison swap was happening. So you have 10 Americans being transferred back to the U.S., while 252 Venezuelans, to my best understanding, have been set freed from El Salvador. And to my best knowledge, the Venezuelans more than likely will be going back to Venezuela. That's to my best knowledge, because they said right here, Venezuela hailed the return of 7 migrant children who had been separated from their parents in the United States. The children were among more than 200 Venezuelans who returned on a regular deportation flight. So my best guess is that America got 10 of our people back from Venezuela. El Salvador will be releasing the Venezuelans. And my best guess, I don't know what El Salvador gets out of this. I don't know. Because if you mean to tell me that America and Venezuela technically did the deal with one another, but El Salvador was the middleman, you got to give something to the middleman. I'm not certain, to my knowledge, that what El Salvador gets out of this. That'll probably be something, again, behind the scenes that nobody will know until somebody starts to do some digging to find out what El Salvador gets. But 10 Americans will be coming back to America, or they're more than likely already back in America right now. So congratulations to them. Congratulations to 252 Venezuelans that will more than likely be going back to Venezuela. Congratulations to them. But I do hope that a journalist figures out what El Salvador gets in this, because again, I'm just taking this from a regular person-to-person situation. You do a business deal with someone else, but you need a middleman to kind of be in it to make this deal happen. Something has to be in it for the middleman to make this happen. And I don't know what, again, Venezuela gets, but again, we'll find out probably later down the line, or we never will. But I just find it weird, but again, that's out of my pay grade, and we'll see what happens later down the line. So again, congratulations to everyone for making a trade, everyone being able to go back to their homeland, and again, congratulations to everyone, and we'll find out, or if we will or we won't, what El Salvador gets out of this deal. Now, moving out of that, I have to go into political news, so with me saying that, I always got to do this. The thoughts and opinions that you're about to hear about political news comes from the mind and voice of G2, no one else. I have no political agenda to Republican Party, Democratic Party. I am only me. This is my thought, my mind. I have to always say that every single time, because I don't want no one to ever think this broadcast, this brand, me as a host, has any type of allegiance to any political party. I don't. Because I personally, if we're really going to keep it a buck, I don't care about the Democratic Party. I don't care about the Republican Party. I think both parties are full of it and a lot of their stance with a lot of things. I just think that a lot of people need to just think for the common good and not think of just a political party and stand behind one political party. Because again, usually both political parties are full of it in what they do. So I just want to always get that out of there when I start this stuff off. So the first thing I do want to talk about is, again, the Jeffrey Epstein's files. It's been a big thing that has been talked about for some time now, but as of recently, I want to say it was last week or 2 weeks ago, they mentioned how there was no such thing as the Jeffrey Epstein file. There was no list of big, high celebrities, big high list of corporate people, like the big wigs that was on Epstein Island. There's no such thing in that list. And they said that Jeffrey Epstein did commit suicide. He did self-transition in his prison cell, jail cell, if you will. They said that. And again, people have been really, really not believing of those type of things. I'm one of them. I don't believe none of that. Personally, I always found that very, very weird. Even whenever he first got arrested, and this was around the time, I was in college at this time period, and I didn't really pay too much attention to politics like that, but I did know about this whole Jeffrey Epstein case, and I did pay attention to the news at the time. They were talking about how he had an island, and he had people on there, and they would show, not videos, but photos of people being on said island, different celebrities being on there, even having, Prince Andrew, I believe, being at the island. And this is where they say they were underage girls being there and all that stuff, right? So you have people that have been getting at the Trump administration for this last week, hassling Trump, hassling people in his administration about the Jeffrey Epstein's files. Why aren't they being released? What do you mean there's no such thing as a list? Because the administration said that there's no such thing. Before they were in office, they would talk about how there was a list and how there had to be a list of people that were in high corporate spots and celebrities and all that did some of those mischievous things with some underage people at the Epstein Island. Now that they're in office, somehow that list doesn't exist. Well, Trump finally got tired of it. At first this week, he said that he didn't want people that didn't side with him on his belief that there's no such thing as a list. There is no such thing as a list, first and foremost. And if you can't side with me on this, I don't need you. I don't want you with me on my side. You're weak people. And that was a thing that happened earlier this week. And then later in the week, he would actually change his tune and actually ask for the release of the grand jury testimony in the Epstein case. CNN would write up about it. They would say the Trump administration chaotic handling of the so-called Jeffrey Epstein files continued Friday as the Justice Department asked a federal judge to make public years-old grand jury testimony made behind closed doors against the convicted sex offender. In its filings, the department justified releasing the secret evidence as a matter of public interest. The public interest in the Epstein matter has remained. Given this long-standing and legitimate interest, the government now moves to unseal grand jury transcripts associated with Epstein. The filing reads, it notes the department will file a similar motion in the case against Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell. President Donald Trump called for the Attorney General Pamela Bondi agreed to file the motion Thursday night as the administration faced increasing backlash over its botched handling of the Epstein files. So there you go. He finally caved, and they're looking to release those testimonies to the public to try to get them off their back. Now, here's the thing with that. That's not going to be the case. I don't see them releasing all of that, and if they do, not a lot of it is going to be really made to the public, if we're going to be honest. The only way the public is going to be satisfied with their quote-unquote search for blood is if they get a couple names of people, and I mean high celebrity people, big wigs in the financial industry, political industry. If you throw out names that actually were at the Epstein Island, and again, this is all alleged, messed around with young girls that were at this island, that's the only way you're going to satisfy the people and get them off your back. If you are in the Trump administration, if you are Donald Trump. So again, his team can ask for the transcripts. They can say we're going to release the transcripts. They can do that all they want, but it's not going to let the flames down. It's not going to extinguish the flames that has been building ever since Epstein got arrested, and the death and the conspiracy of the list. And I have to say conspiracy, but for me, in my own personal belief, I don't believe there is a conspiracy. I don't believe that there isn't a list. Because if you remember when Queen Elizabeth was around, and she had to kind of exile her son, Prince Andrew. And Prince Andrew couldn't be around for public meetings. They had to kind of take him off of public duty. He had to like be in the shadows because of one of the girls at the time, but she's a grown woman now, came out, showed a photo of herself on the island with Prince Andrew that was supposedly on Epstein Island. And we had all of that. And you had the U.S. Justice Department actually wanting Prince Andrew to come over to the States so they can speak with him. And Andrew never came to the States. At least the Justice Department never ever publicized him coming to the States, and they actually talking to him. They could have did it in secrecy, but nobody will ever know. That was never ever publicized. And again, there's been photos and all that type of stuff that's been floating around. So there has to be a list. And again, they can ask for the grand jury to release the behind the closed door testimony all you want, but your people, whether it be Republicans, Democrats, the people that aren't in any of those political parties, just the outsiders looking into the situation, they're going to be asking for that list, bro. No matter what, you got to throw out something. And if I was the person that is managing Trump, or if I was one of the I'm not going to say dark forces, one of the people behind the scenes that's pulling the strings, I would just throw out a couple names that the public really doesn't care about, or that the public has already ill will towards those people, and just say, well, these were the people that were on the list. Here you go. Here's a couple names of it. And people might ask, what about all the other people? Guess what? You might not ever get all those people, but we at least threw you something. So we at least can say, well, they did give us something. Because the American people already know you're not going to give them the whole list. And with you saying there's not a list, and people already saying there is a list, if you throw out something, guess what? The people will at least say, well, they gave us something. Well, we should never ever quit fighting. Whatever. They gave us something. And we can call it a day, at least for that. And we all can say, well, we tried. We got a couple of names, and we could do what we could do with those names, all right? But that's me if I was managing the Trump administration in their situation with this debacle right now. But, hey, man, it is what it is. We'll see what happens with them releasing, or if they can release the testimonies. But if they do, I'll bring it back to this podcast and talk to you all about it. Now, moving on for that, still sticking with Donald Trump, but more this is about his health. They have said that he's been diagnosed with chronic, I want to say this is venous insufficiency. The White House announced on Thursday. They shared a letter from Trump's physician in a news conference, which said Trump was examined after he noticed mild swelling in his legs. The physician described the condition as benign and common, particularly among adults above the age of 70. He will add that the president is in excellent health and that the president's full letter would be released soon. Dog, I ain't trying to hear that. Listen here. People saw that homeboy had like purplish hand, like with a vein on his hand, and now you're telling me he got a swelling leg. My man is old, all right? Donald Trump is old. He is 79, okay? He's 79. Dude should not be a president. As a matter of fact, no 79-year-old, no 80-year-old, nobody in their late 70s, early 70s, late 60s, early 60s should be, at least in my thought process, should be president. The latest if you're going to be president is literally about 60 years old. That's it. And I'm talking about towards the end of your presidency. You should end at the age of 60, not running at the age of 60. That's what I mean. You could be a 40-year-old. I think it'd be fine for you to run for president. 50-year-old. Okay. 55, we start looking at you like, all right, this is about the time. Like, that's the cutoff point. Because if you win, you'll get in by the age of 56, and you'll come out by the age of 60. So there you go. But nobody over the age of 60 should be president to me at all. because you're already going to have some health declines happening to you. Things are going to start happening to your body differently. And again, your mind isn't going to try to evolve with the nation as a leader should be evolving with the nation yearly, decadely, all that type of stuff, right? So in this case right here, Donald Trump's just old. He's experiencing old man medical stuff. For them to say that he's in excellent health, I think what they're talking about is that he's not dying. He's in health, that he can still walk, still do the job, and all that type of stuff. But excellent health, I think we're stretching it a little bit. Okay? But yeah, man, that's what it is right now. They had to put that out. Do I think he's in excellent health? No. He's just an older man that should not be president, but that's just where we're at with this. And yeah, if something else happens to Donald Trump, we'll know about it, or at least we should know. They shouldn't try to keep that under wraps, but they might. Who's to say? But with that out the way, now it's time for me to move on to the next thing, and this is out of political news now, so that's done. CNN will write up, the Justice Department says former officer convicted in Breonna Taylor raid should get 1 day in jail. The Justice Department is asking that a former police officer found guilty of violating the civil rights of Breonna Taylor in 2020 when she was shot and killed by police in her Louisville home be sentenced to 1 day in jail. The officer, Brent Hankinson of Kentucky, was convicted of 1 count of abusing Taylor's civil rights last year after firing several shots through Taylor's bedroom window during a police raid. He is set to be sentenced on Monday. The court filings on Wednesday, the Justice Department argued that although Hankinson was part of the team executing the warrant, defendant Hankinson did not shoot Miss Taylor and is not otherwise responsible for her death. Counsel is unaware of another prosecution in which a police officer has been charged with depriving the rights of another person under the Fourth Amendment for returning fire and not injuring anyone, prosecutors wrote in their filing. The request for Hankinson to serve 1 day behind bars would mean a sentence of time served, meaning that he would not return to jail. They are also asking Judge Rebecca Jennings to sentence him to 3 years of supervised release. Let me say this right now. If you do that for this officer, I'm going to say this right now, you should do that for the getaway driver or the person in the car whenever a robbery takes place. If I'm in the car and a robbery takes place and I know nothing about it, and I see my people come running out and they start saying, drive, drive, drive. And you're in the car with them and somehow the police happens to pull over the car. Everyone gets arrested. That person in the car that had nothing to do with that situation, that person should be getting a real light sentence. Nothing heavy, not mad years in prison if we're going to go that route with this police officer here for the Justice Department only wanting this guy to serve only 1 day in jail because he did not shoot. That's what this thing is literally saying. The team executed a search warrant, but homeboy did not shoot Miss Taylor and is not responsible for her death. No. He was a part of it. You're a police officer. You know what the job entails for a police officer. You guys are up there in that spotlight. Dog, you know what time it is. For me, as a person looking at this, that's the way I see this. Now, it is what it is. We're in a real wonky, crazy time right now, and we'll have to wait and see what happens on Monday for Brent Hankinson. But I will always go back to this right here. If they give this man 1 day of jail, and he'll basically be out because he already served time in there already. That should be the case for all robberies that happen, for all assaults that happen, for anything else. If you're just a bystander and you happen to see that if you're with the people. That's the way I feel about this seriously. Because again, he's an officer. He was with his crew to execute a search warrant. And for them to say that he did not shoot Breonna Taylor and they're saying that he's not responsible for her death, that to me, again, is just like the bystander that was with the crew, saw what happened, and he should not be hit with any type of big type of punishment. That's just the way I feel about it. So again, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. I'll bring it back more than likely my Wednesday midweek breakdown podcast to talk about it. But again, man, I just don't think that's the right thing. Again, you're an officer. You're supposed to be a part of the law. You know what time it is. And we'll just have to wait and see what's going to happen there. Now, moving off of that, I have to talk about Stephen Colbert. They would announce that Stephen Colbert's late night show has been canceled by CBS. They say CBS is canceling the late night show with Stephen Colbert next May, ending a decades-old TV institution and removing from air one of the U.S. President Donald Trump's most prominent and late-night critics. The announcement followed Colbert's criticism on Monday of a settlement between Mr. Trump and Paramount Global, parent company of CBS, over a 60 Minutes story. Colbert told his audience at New York's Ed Sullivan Theater that he had learned on Wednesday night that after a decade on air, next year would be our last season, adding, "It's the end of the late night show on CBS. I'm not being replaced. This is all just going away." This, again, all happened because I saw the clip. Stephen Colbert talked about how there's supposed to be a business deal between Paramount and I believe the company that's trying to buy Paramount, Skydance Media, and they need the Trump administration's approval for this to happen, for this deal to come together, right? And Colbert on Monday had a monologue. He was offended that Donald Trump was able to get $16 million, a settlement from Paramount, because of the 60-minute story that ran, right? He didn't go into it in a harsh way, but he did criticize, Colbert did criticize Trump. He criticized the top brass in CBS and in Paramount. He criticized them. And to me, for that to happen on Monday night, and then for later in the week, him to tell his audience and for him to get the news that his show was going to be legit off air next year, is not a coincidence. It happened because of Colbert's monologue that he did Monday. And also his buddy Jon Stewart, he did the exact same thing on Comedy Central last week. He was criticizing Paramount for the $16 million settlement with Donald Trump. He did that last week. So I believe Jon Stewart's The Daily Show might be up on the chopping block too. Maybe, because they're under the CBS Paramount banner as well with Comedy Central. Comedy Central's underneath that banner as well. So we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen with that. But, for Jon Stewart. But we do know Stephen Colbert, he is going to be out of a job by next year. And if anything, he'll probably pivot. He'll probably pivot over to YouTube like my guy who was supposed to take over the job for Jon Stewart on The Daily Show, Hassan something. He got his show or his thing on YouTube. He's doing his thing over there. Stephen Colbert, I can see him mixing it up with Hassan over there, or he'll start his own thing, and Jon Stewart will probably pop up there from time to time, or other people that did the news. I can just see that, because I don't see Stephen Colbert literally quitting at all, to be honest with you. But his show on television will be off next year, and this just tells you that actions does have consequences. That's just the true nature of the matter, especially in this new era, in this new regime, dude. I keep on saying this constantly, dude. You can't, I'm not gonna say you can't. You have to look at what happened in the first reign to this new reign. Things are being done drastically different from Trump's first term to this term right here. And for Paramount, CBS to need the Trump administration to sign off on this deal to happen, for Colbert to go off the way that he did on Monday. And again, it wasn't a real bad go off. It was just like one of those, hey, I'm not pleased with my bosses making a settlement with Trump. Yes, I'm criticizing Trump as I usually do type of monologues that Stephen Colbert does from time to time. I don't think it warrant his show to be canceled, but I mean, with this, again, this newfound regime that they're doing what they're doing, with everything that people are doing what they're doing under this regime for Trump, dog, there's nothing that you can do. There's nothing. If you're on that late night circuit, you have to be careful. I think a lot of people under the late night circuit that used to make jokes about Trump, and they still will make jokes about Trump, but they're still going to do it. I think you got to know when to cross that line and when not to cross that line. You got to know when to be a habitual line stepper. You got to know. Because if you don't know, and sad thing for Stephen Colbert, you might end up getting the axe. And again, I feel sorry for Stephen Colbert, but I feel that he'll still be fine. He'll be okay. He'll be like, again, Don Lemon. He'll find his scenario on YouTube or on these, streaming platforms, which are like Twitch or something. I'm pretty sure Stephen Colbert would do something with that. I find that Stephen Colbert will be fine. Just all in all. But just be careful if you're an entertainment entity, if you're under any type of ABC, NBC, all that type of stuff. Don't try to go crazy, because the networks will bend the knee to this administration and you might get chopped. Just be careful of that, because again, that's what happened to Stephen Colbert, and a lot of his late night brethren are circling around him and they are not appreciating what happened. Jimmy Kimmel said that he didn't like what happened. He doesn't like that CBS did that. So again, it's just gotta be careful now. That's all I can basically say to you all. Again, you're in the entertainment business, be careful. Be careful criticizing Trump, especially if you're in the ABC, CBS, NBC, all that industry. Just be careful. Now, moving off of that, I do have to talk about something that I find funny, and I think that the rest of the internet did find funny. There was a viral clip that happened this week. It was of a man and a woman being caught at a Coldplay concert. And from my understanding, this was like during the little kiss cam moments that they used to have at like the baseball games. Coldplay had this at their concert. You saw one couple there, and then it turned to another couple, and then you see a man behind a woman. He's holding her, she's holding on to him, and then it flashes to them, and you just see them just in shock. And the woman quickly hides her face. He let goes of her waist. He starts ducking down, hiding his face. And boy, that was like a funny thing to see that happen. And even the, band leader, the singer of Coldplay, he would kind of like make a little funny joke and say, either they're having an affair or they're just very shy. And apparently, I'm not gonna say there's an affair happening, but those two individuals are married, and they're not married to each other. The Independent will write an article about it. They will say astronomer has launched a formal investigation after the married CEO, Andy Bryan, and HR boss caught on Coldplay Kiss Cam. Software company Astronomer has launched a formal investigation after its married CEO and head of HR were caught being intimate at a Coldplay concert, engulfing the internet in rumors of an alleged affair between the boss and his underling. Astronomer is committed to the values and culture that have guided us since our foundings. Our leaders are expected to set the standard in both conduct and accountability, the company said in a statement on LinkedIn. The board of directors has initiated a formal investigation into this matter, and we will have additional details to share very shortly. Social media went into a meltdown after footage circulated showing two people identified as Andy Bryan and his company's chief people officer, Christine Cabot, awkwardly jumping out of each other's arms as they flash on the kiss cam during the band show in Boston Wednesday night. Bryan, who had his arms wrapped around Christine's waist from behind, quickly let her go as the HR chief covered her face with her hands, then crouched down trying to hide from the camera. So they launched an investigation just trying to see what's going down, and it's plain as day you can see what went down, buddy. I don't know what type of investigation you need to have here with that. They were messing around. They were getting it in. And I'm not going to say they were kissing on camera. They weren't. But I don't think no married man will be behind a woman that he's not at least in some type of agreement to be dating or something. Hands around her waist, holding her against his chest. If you're not dating someone, you're not doing that. Period. I would love to see and or hear from anyone that's either married or dating someone. It could be a long-term, 1 year, 2 year situation, whether dating or married. Ask them, would they allow their spouse to be in their situation with a coworker like this at a concert? Every single person will say no, unless they have that open relationship type status. And from what we saw right here, this did not look like an open relationship type situation. The man and woman both looked terrified, and they both tried to hide their face in utter shock and shame. That's just what happened here. I'm going to make this my own personal opinion on this matter right here. If you are married and you have a side piece, whether it's a man or a female, don't matter. You cannot go to any sporting event. You cannot go to any entertainment situation. You can't be doing any of that, ladies and gentlemen. You can't, because we are in the era of everything being videoed or everything being photographed. And we have been in this era for the last decade. I'll say it again. We have been in this era for the last decade. Everything being videoed and photographed. However, I'll say for the last 5 or 6 years, we have been in the era that it will go viral, especially if you act out of place the way that these two act out of place. You understand? Someone put it out on a tweet saying if they didn't act out of place and they just would have just stood there and just held on to one another, no one would have cared. This video would not have went viral. But since they dropped down and hid their face in shame, it's gonna go viral because we all know what shame looks like. That's the look of shame. That's the look of you're not supposed to be doing that. You're not supposed to be doing that with this person. And you know that. So, again, man, I just find this very, very funny and let this be a real teachable moment. And this is just straight up someone being cold cock busted. Straight up. There's no way you could try to disguise it, finagle it. You're busted, my G. And now with him being the CEO, I believe they said this was a software company, if I'm not mistaken. For this, software company. For him to be the CEO of this and he's married, this is a easy case for the woman, his wife, to get some out of this. Real easy. Divorce homeboy here. Real easy. Because you brought shame and you brought humiliation to her. Because this video lives. This video is viral, dog. You have people talking about this. Not only on the internet, but also people on TV talking about this. So again, the wife is going to get this real easy, real wrapped up real quick if she wanted to do that. You know what I mean? But time will tell. Time will wait and see. But again, let this be a teachable lesson to everybody out here with side pieces. From a workplace or wherever. Do not do that. First and foremost, I would say don't have a side piece. If you're not happy in a relationship, please just end it. Just made that perfectly clear. However, if you do get a side piece, make sure it's not from the workplace. You can't crap where you eat, ladies and gentlemen. The only time I think it's kind of acceptable, if I'm going to be completely honest, and again, this is against my own thought process, is if you're in some type of entertainment field. If you're in television, you're in film, you're going to be bound to date someone that you're around in these intimate processes, creating art. You're going to. So I have no beef with that point, but when you're in an everyday situation where you go to work and you're around this person, you're able to leave the work and go home and go out to the clubs and all that. Again, it might feel tempting to date someone because it's kind of like the school environment. You see them every day. You might develop some feelings, all that, but no. Things will go awry and you don't want that to cause some problems at your job that you will be at every single day. The entertainment field, again, you're only there for a certain amount of time. If you're making a film, making a movie, you know what an end date is, and you guys can just go about your business after that. But every day, 9 to 5ers at a job, no. That's every day until you're either fired, my G. So don't do that. Especially, by the way, CEO and HR. I don't see this ending good. Again, they're doing an investigation. I don't know what you got to investigate. We all see it. The proof is right there in the pudding. What, you're going to investigate to see how long this has been happening? You're going to talk to all the other people at the job to see when did they start noticing something different about the CEO and head of HR? What? When did you notice that she and him have been having meetings? When have they been having lunch schedulings? What, you going to do all that? I just find that a waste of time. But again, amen. Corporate is corporate. They got to do what they got to do. But the proof is in the pudding. So again, ladies and gentlemen, do not crap where you eat. That's my best advice to everyone. And again, to these two, you guys are screwed, bro. It is what it is. And also, again, don't take your side piece or your work to these functions. Again, you can't take them to no sporting event. You can't take them to no music festival like this. Not festival, but music concert. I think the only place, and again, I won't suggest this, but the only place I think you might be able to is what, like a club or something where it's all dark. But again, I wouldn't suggest it at all. That's just me though. So with that, amen. Best of luck to the CEO and HR. That's all I got for you here. Now, moving off of that busted, on to another case, but this is now Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe is not busted. Shannon Sharpe, as a matter of fact, has settled his sexual assault and battery lawsuit. Tony Busby, the man that's representing the woman in this case, who has been identified as Jane Doe, announced that both sides have reached a resolution and the case will be dismissed. He will say on Twitter, both sides acknowledge a long-term consensual and tumultuous relationship. I'm pleased to announce that we have reached a mutually agreed upon resolution. All matters have now been addressed satisfactorily and the matter is closed. The lawsuit will thus be dismissed with prejudice. Busby did not release any details of the arrangement. So Sharpe is planning on putting this behind him. And for me right now, the big thing for me in this situation is Shannon Sharpe going to be back on ESPN? I don't know how ESPN is going to take this. I know Shannon Sharpe said when this whole ordeal happened around April, when he made that video saying that this is a shakedown and I appreciate my family and my friends and all that stuff, right? And he said that he'll be back on ESPN whenever the football season went around or was coming back around. And you had all the sports commentators, people that worked in that industry said that they doubt that Shannon Sharpe will be coming back because of this situation right here. Now that Shannon Sharpe has settled it and we're coming close to football season because we're almost at the end of July, whether people know this or not. I believe football season starts back up, I want to say mid-August, late August, probably. Is Shannon Sharpe going to be back on ESPN? That's the big concern for me. Yes, the woman got money. The woman got paid. Cool, fine, great. I wonder, is Shannon Sharpe going to be able to make money again now from ESPN? Because again, this was something that was, again, between two people, two adults. Yes, Shannon Sharpe being the older individual of the situation. And even Busby, and I'll say this again, Busby, the man that was representing the female, he talked about that both sides acknowledged a long, consensual, and tumultuous relationship, meaning that this was a rocky, but it was consensual between both of the parties. Since Tony Busby has put that in the statement, ESPN should be able to look at it and say, okay, we understand that we had to put you on timeout for that, but we're going to be able to put you back in because the accuser's lawyer did say that you and that woman were in a consensual and tumultuous relationship. It isn't like adults are not in consensual and tumultuous relationship every single day. Not to the point that they hit one another, but they have said things towards one another that we heard Shannon Sharpe on the not on the emails, but on the voicemails saying I'm choke you out or something like that. And again, people have said that in arguments with their spouse or with their girlfriend, boyfriend. People have said that. It's not nothing special or nothing different. We've all heard it. But I understand what ESPN had to take a step back from Shannon Sharpe, but now since this thing is done, I wonder, will they have Shannon Sharpe back on television? I think they should, because he didn't do nothing technically wrong. Again, it's just him with words. No more, none less. And again, for me, that shouldn't specify for him to be out of a job on ESPN. Only if he actually hurt that woman should he be out of a job, okay? But since that wasn't the case, let Shannon Sharpe be back on TV. That's just my thought on it. Let Shannon Sharpe get back to making everything right in his world and allow the homeboy to make the right, proper money that he was supposed to be making, all right? Now, moving off of Shannon Sharpe, moving on to another NFL player. NFL player Rashee Rice has been sentenced to jail time and probation following the involvement in the 2024 street racing incident. If you don't know what I'm talking about here, I'm pretty sure you saw the viral video that I say occurred last year where Mr. Rice here was in a multi-car crash that happened in Texas. They say Dallas, right? You see him racing supposedly with a friend, and you see his car just like pop into another car. And apparently he was going more than 119 miles per hour on the expressway, and he lost control, hitting the center median wall, triggering a chain reaction collision involving other vehicles. 6 in total. I'm getting all this information from CNN, by the way. They said that Rice pleaded guilty to third-degree felony charges, collision involving serious bodily injury, and racing on a highway causing bodily injury. So, there you have it there. They said it is unclear whether Rice will serve time in jail. He should, because you mean to tell me he got 30 days of jail time? He has to serve his jail time. He has to go to jail for 30 days. It's better if he started doing it now so he can get these 30 days out the way, and so once he gets out, he'll be able to go back and go and do what he got to do for the NFL. He'll probably miss a couple games because they'll probably slap him on the wrist for that situation, but he's still going to play football. Okay, I expect Mr. Rice on the field this year or this football season, but I think right now he should have, or his lawyer should have said, hey, if we're going to do these 30 days, we need to get it cracking like now. We need to start doing it now so my client can work. So my client can start working whenever it's time for him to work in the season starting. You know what I mean? That would have been my thing if I was his lawyer. But we will see what will happen there. Again, he's just been sentenced to it. 5 years probation and 30 days in jail. We'll see when he'll actually start. But I'm happy that something did happen, because I remember that video. It was a nasty video. I didn't like seeing that. And there was never ever really any information about this after the situation happened. There was never no follow-up. There was never nothing. There would always be a little something. It was never ever anything real deep dive that people can really ever like answer for about this or what they were going to do with Mr. Rice. So now with that being the case, I'm hoping that he just goes and get his 30 days jail sentence done, get it over with. So when the football season starts, you can get back to work and again, probably get hit with some game suspensions, but you need to probably be one of those people that is like a ambassador for the NFL. Let that be part of the program. Say that you are here to do one of those campaigns saying that you shouldn't be driving fast. I was wrong for what I did. All that type of stuff. That's what should happen for Mr. Rice, but we will see. So again, we have that information on Mr. Rice. And now moving off Mr. Rice, the last topic of the day. The last topic is UMG not giving Salt-N-Pepa their masters, saying that their masters are not technically going to be going to them. They're going to be going to their, I want to say their producer. Billboard would write up about it, and they would say UMG is firing back at Salt-N-Pepa's attempt to win back control of their masters, saying that the claims are legally invalid as the hip-hop duo was not actually party to its 1986 record deal. Argument comes in UMG's Thursday motion to dismiss the lawsuit brought by Salt-N-Pepa back in May. Salt-N-Pepa claimed the major label is refusing to honor their so-called termination rights, a provision of copyright law that allows artists who sign over their master recordings to regain control of that intellectual property 35 years after a song's release. UMG's lawyers argue that Salt-N-Pepa don't have any termination rights because both ladies were not the ones who signed away their masters from the 1980s and 1990s albums. The music giant says Salt-N-Pepa's 1986 distribution deal with Next Plateau Records, now part of UMG, was actually signed by the duo's producer, Lovebug. So what I'm getting at from this is that instead of Salt-N-Pepa being the ones to get their masters back for their records, it will instead be the producer, because he was the one that signed off on it. And my understanding is usually if you're an artist and you're the person that signs off on it, you got 35 years for that record, not for the record, for that label to have that music, make as much money as they can off of that. You'll be eating too, but they'll be making the bigger portions of it. And then once those 35 years is up, that master, that intellectual property, that control would go over to the artist. That's my understanding of this. And for that not to be the case here, because both ladies were not the people that signed over to do this back in 1986, it was actually their producer. The producer is the one that's going to actually be getting those musical rights, that intellectual property. I think that is scummy. I think that's wrong. I think that Salt-N-Pepa should be getting the intellectual property because of their voice on those songs. You marketed as Salt-N-Pepa. Let's not be stupid here. You didn't market it as producer Lovebug. You didn't do that. It is songs by Salt-N-Pepa. They were the face. They were the people that sung the hits, all that type of stuff. A producer has their part in it. Let's not get it twisted. But they were the ones. They're the face. They're the product. You know what it is. So I feel that they should be able to get their intellectual property back. But again, the law is the law, and whatever's on paperwork is on paperwork. I think that sometimes you got to do what's right, and that's just not right. The music business isn't predicated technically on what's right. It's predicated to do what they want to do for the best of them. And this is just scummy to me. Personally, this is scummy. I don't like it. And hopefully Salt-N-Pepa can find a lawyer or find other lawyers or talk to someone in the music industry that will give them one of the best lawyers so they can actually fight this crap right here, because it's not right. UMG should just hand over the musical property over to Salt-N-Pepa, because the time is coming up, from my understanding, for them to hand it over. Hand it over to them, dude. It's not that hard. It's not that difficult. Just don't be a douche. You guys made all the money you can off of Salt-N-Pepa already. Let it go back to them. That's all it should be, all right? That's my understanding. That's my opinions on it. And I do hope that Salt-N-Pepa do get their intellectual property, their albums, their control back for said albums. So that's what I'm hoping for both ladies there. Now, with all that being said, I believe that's everything that I do have to make mention on today's episode. So with that stated, it is now time for me to get you guys out of here. I would like to thank everybody for listening to today's podcast. I would like to thank all the podcast sites for having me on, whether it be Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Podbean, iHeart, all the other podcasting sites that you're listening to this podcast on, because without them, I won't be able to get this podcast out to you guys, the downloaders and listeners. So I want to thank them first and foremost, but not so far behind. I would like to thank you guys, the downloaders and listeners, for, as I said, downloading an episode, listening to the episode, whether you're in your car, in your gym, in your home, playing it in background noise. I appreciate all of that because, ladies and gentlemen, I want people to keep up with what's going on, not just in the news, but what's going on just around, okay? And have conversations with people. So please, ladies and gentlemen, have conversations with people, make sure people are okay, make sure people are all right, and just conversate with people about things that you heard today. If someone piqued your interest, talk to someone about it and get their insight or their opinion on it, alright? So, having said that, always remember,
I love you, I love you, I love you. I love you, I love you, I love you.
this is not a gimmick. I really do appreciate and love every single one of you guys for downloading an episode. And again, I want everyone to be okay. I want everyone to be alright. I want everyone to have a great, lovely week. Please don't be a douche. Please don't be a dick. And please don't stress out over things that you cannot control. Please try to make this upcoming week the best week that you can, not only for yourself, but for other individuals that might come in contact with you, okay? So with that stated, I want everyone, again, to have a great time, great day. You'll hear from me soon. This isn't goodbye. This is until you hear from the sweet sounding voice again. This has been the My 2 Cents podcast presented by G2. He is I and I am him. And with all that being said, Kanye, could you please take these people home?
I'm tired, you tired, Jesus wept.